Let's go ahead and take a look back on this game. We don't really have any news to get into, so there's just nothing too crazy happening right now. This tends to happen in the regular season where news kind of lacks, but we got a whole bunch of game preview to talk about, which is the more exciting stuff anyway. I'd rather talk about game previews than just like, hey, the Rams signed this guy to, he's going to be a sixth string, so... But the Arizona Cardinals defeated the Los Angeles Rams by a score of 37-20. The Rams did score that late touchdown to Bobby Trees to make it 20-37. But really, emotionally, we can all accept, I think. I hope that we all can accept this. Maybe I'm alone here. That game really was just a blowout by the Cardinals. 37-13 really is what it kind of could have been, whatever. But hey, there's still 60 minutes in each game, and we still scored in those. So, 20 points is fine, too. But, it was a combination of a couple of things. The Rams looked flat in this game, and also the Cardinals looked really strong. So, you get those two things together, and it's not going to look good for the Rams. You got the Arizona Cardinals coming in. This is kind of a situation that I don't want to call it a trap game because it's not, because the Cardinals are a good football team, but it's one of those situations where the Rams are coming off this huge win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Arizona Cardinals probably had this game circled on their calendar since April when the schedule came out. And then you also, it's the whole thing is like the 8 straight wins for the Rams. I talked about it. The home teams only won 4 of the last 13, and now it's 4 of the last 14 games in this series. So I've talked about these things, and then also the Arizona Cardinals just came in and they had something to prove to the Rams. They're on the road in LA. The whole conversation is well, the Rams are the best team in the West, all this stuff. And I do think that that's still true, unfortunately. And that's Cardinals fans are going to think that I'm just a jerk for thinking that. But I do think the Rams are still a really good team and probably better than the Cardinals. Probably. I want to give it some more time, but because the Cardinals we saw last year started extremely strong as well, and then they fell off completely. Do you know that the last time the Arizona Cardinals started 4-0, they ended the season 5-11? So let's give it some time first, But the Rams, I think, are still a great team, but it was just one of those days. It was like the perfect storm, and I'm a little bit disappointed in myself for not kind of catching that last week and going into this game with the preparation that, hey guys, this could be that situation where the Rams just kind of have a flat game, because all the makings were perfect for it. Coming off a big win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Arizona Cardinals come into town, losing 8 straight to the LA Rams and Sean McVay. And, it's on the road for them. They're a good team this year. They're really strong this year, actually. And then they just come in with something to prove over the LA Rams and to the rest of the NFL. So I'm pumped for our next game with them. It's pretty late in the season. I want to say that's like a 14 or 15. So yeah, it's going to be a late one, but hey, that one's good. Oh, actually, I was thinking of something else. I don't know exactly when that game is, but I'm really excited for that one. But it does seem like every big win the Rams, under Sean McVay, every single big win that the LA Rams have had is followed up by a pretty poor performance. And I will give examples of that later on in the game preview, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk about the Rams off of a big win, what happens, and then what follows that. So we'll talk about all of it. We'll break it all down for you guys in the game preview. But this, let's not pretend though. And I want to say, I don't think that, because obviously I think that the Rams played really flat, and the Cardinals came in kicking butts. You know what I mean? So it was just a perfect storm. But I don't want the fact that the Rams did play really flat to take anything away from the Arizona Cardinals, because they did a great job, and they have been doing a great job so far this season. I don't want to take anything away from them. But I do think that ultimately the Rams just did such a bad job in this game. Defense, I don't even know what the game plan was on defense. It wasn't to keep Kyler Murray in the pocket. It wasn't to force him out of the pocket. It wasn't to take away any specific receiver. It wasn't to force the passing game to do anything. It wasn't to force them to run the ball against us or take away the run completely, because none of those things happened, and nothing was evident in the way that the game was unfolding. There was at no point where you could say oh, well, this is what we're trying to do. We're just not getting it done. I ended the game and it was what was the plan? What was the game plan there? You have Kyler Murray, who is being talked about for MVP this year, even though going into the game it had only been 3 weeks. You know that they have weapons for days. DeAndre Hopkins got taken out of the game last week, or in week 3, and then Christian Kirk and AJ Green both went over 100. Why do we have David Long on AJ Green? That just makes absolutely no sense when you have Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey. The run defense didn't look like it knew what to do. Even the pass rush was not containing how we've seen this pass rush contain. I don't. It just that game plan just disappeared of being able to contain Kyler Murray and keep him in the pocket, because we've been able to do that every single other time we played him. So that's like my big gripe on this game is what was the game plan? I just want to know that. Was it people just not performing, or was there really just like we're just going to try, we're going to do what we want to do. It's not worried about them. This is our defense. It doesn't matter what they're going to do kind of thing, because that's a way to get beat. You got to, the Bill Belichick way is his game plan is vastly different every single week, depending on the opponent. And I don't know if that's something that Raheem Morris is doing right now. So, of course, hey, we're through 4 weeks, about a quarter of the season. I think it's a quarter of the season like tomorrow or something. But we're about 4 weeks through, and I just want it to be known that, this is now the preseason for our starters is over. I mean, the Rams starters didn't play in preseason. They never do under McVay. And so now that's over. We got that out of the way. But also, we're coming out of week 4 with a 3-1 record, which could be so much worse. All right. The Rams being 3-1 at this point in the season, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? You're going to lose some games. You can't win them all. That would actually be extremely boring, to be completely honest with you guys. The Rams just went 17-0 every single year. That would eventually get boring to me. I would have a hard time with that, but I just want to know what the plan was on defense. But also, aside from that, again, don't want to take anything away from the Arizona Cardinals, who had a great offensive game plan against the Rams. I mean, their weapons are very difficult to cover, and that's also another thing. A little sidebar here again would be that the last 2 weeks, the Rams defense has been getting a lot of flack from its own fans. Understandably so, but it's also a situation where the Rams played the Buccaneers and the Arizona Cardinals, both teams who have just weapons for days. So, I mean, do you just throw in the Chiefs next after that, because that's like the next course of action. So, yes, we have to do a better job there, but I mean, those are strong teams. I worded that backwards. Those are very strong teams with a lot of weapons, but also based on last year, the way this defense played last year, the way that we are number 1 in yards, number 1 in points, the best Rams defense probably in franchise history. And so we expect to be able to cover those teams with all those weapons, because guess what? There's a few of them now. There's a bunch of teams that have a bunch of guys to throw to. You have to be able to defend it. We expect, as Rams fans, based on last year, based on the players that we have on this roster, that we are able to keep up with those teams. That's all. Let's get into a couple of things here. But first, we're going to start with our game badge. Pull it up. This one's going to Van Jefferson, one of the only guys on offense who looked like he was just out there ready to win, man. And there was a moment there where Matt Stafford was doing some things and was like, this guy doesn't want to lose today. Like, we're going to lose, but hey, he doesn't want to. I know that much. He's busting it out here. But Van Jefferson had 6 catches for 90 yards and racked up another touchdown on the season. At times, he did look like the only guy that was actually ready out there. Like he was giving it. I mean, he was going 100 miles an hour from the first snap until the very end of the game, which I love to see that. Van Jefferson did a great job. And then, like, there's also the aspect that he is playing with just so much confidence right now. And that's really good to see out of Van Jefferson, because, we have last year where the Rams are kind of in a situation where we keep hearing from Sean McVay that, hey, Van Jefferson's really good. Like, he's blowing our minds in practice and stuff like that. And then you get like 3 snaps. And it's like, is he though, Sean? Like, come on, put him in. Like, we want to see cool catches too. Don't keep it to yourself just in practice, man. Like, we all want to see it on TV and stuff, and it's SoFi. So, unleash him, man. But Van Jefferson is the recipient of the Week 4 game badge, and well-deserved. I'm not sure how many other guys were really in the running for this. Maybe Sebastian Joseph Day I would put in there. He's been doing great. We'll talk about him here in just a second, but that would be one of the only other guys that I would say like really just deserves it. But also, I could go with the entire offensive line. They've been playing great. We'll talk about them a little bit more later on as well. Moving on here to Matthew Stafford. He did play decent, but after the first 3 games, I think that our expectations already came into the season pretty high. We go from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. Our expectations are already like, well, okay, we should be better now. And then the first couple of games happen, and, 2-time NFC Offensive Player of the Week is a Ram already. It's 50% of the games that we've played, he's been an NFC Offensive Player of the Week. So our expectations have been kind of creeping up. And in this game, he didn't meet them. And it's unfortunate, but hey, we're going to have those games. And also, I mean, historically speaking, you can look at Matthew Stafford. He does have ups and downs. He's not just this guy all the way across. You know what I mean? He does have his ups and downs. It tends to happen. But our expectations have just been climbing on Matthew Stafford, so it was just a little bit unfortunate to see him in our his first division game in the NFC West, that he just kind of fell flat a little bit. So 26 of 41, not an amazing percentage there. 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. That interception, by the way, that was a bad one. That was not a good interception to throw. It wasn't one of those where the defender just made one heck of a play and you're just like, I mean, well, who does that? Like, I mean, that's, who's going to complete that pass? That was a great defensive play. Because that's what you talk like, apparently, when you're watching the Rams games. I don't know. Anyway, it was just a bad throw. Shouldn't have been there. The deep balls, got to be able to connect on those. It looks like Stafford, I don't know if he understands how fast Deshaun Jackson is yet. I'm struggling with that. I don't know if he knows exactly how fast Deshaun is, because he can get it out there. All right, just go. Launch that puppy. Deshaun will go get it, man. That dude's got wheels. Next on my list, we got Daryl Henderson. He did look strong. I didn't expect to see that much of Daryl Henderson. We did see him on 14 carries. I thought it would be a little bit more reined in, but hey, man, he's looking good. Daryl Henderson's looking like a football player, man, and he's running the ball real hard, which is good to see. I think that he does still, I mean, we need to not forget that he does still have those banged up ribs. So I think that he's only going to get a little bit better as the season goes on. Rib injuries are such a pain. I don't know if you guys have had rib injuries. I talked about it last week. When you have those rib injuries, it lingers, man. Like, my rib injury lasted, it was like 2.5 months before I finally put up my arm and was like, what? That doesn't hurt? Awesome. Like, it was a long time. It was a pain, man. But Daryl Henderson is a lot tougher than I am. So, I mean, I wouldn't have played a football game after that stuff happened. So I mean, he's tougher than I am, but he's also, I mean, Daryl Henderson, and I'm Sheriff Joe Bag. So, I mean, there's some differences there. We're basically the same person, but there are some differences there. I did expect a little bit more Sony Michel than we did see, but Hendo with 14 carries for 89 yards. And if you guys are good at math, I'm not, so I wrote it down here, 6.4 yards per carry average. And it, unfortunately, it seemed to be one of those situations where Sean McVay was just wanting to pass. He wanted to pass the football. And I don't know if the rib injury by Daryl Henderson played any factor in that, but we've seen this before. We've seen that game happen before where Sean McVay just keeps throwing the football and you're like, dude, we're running it well. Why are we not running it? Like, it happens. Sean McVay tends to have those games. That just means next week, or this game against the Seattle Seahawks is coming up really soon, then that just means for that game that we'll probably see a hefty ground game for this one, and probably a little bit more play action than we've seen in the past or in so far this season. And my last one here is Sebastian Joseph Day. Had a really strong day up front, and he just looks a little bit better every single week. Every single week. Just keep your eyeballs on number 69. Just every single week, he just gets a touch better. And I think by the end of this season, because he's one of those guys this year. I mean, we saw it last year. Kenny Young was that guy. By the end of the season, he's a monster. Even Greg Gaines, he started pretty weak, but then as the season went on, just got better and better and better. So, I mean, we've seen it happen before with different guys on this roster. So, I think for this year, it's Sebastian Joseph Day. SJD is that guy this year. I think that he's going to be progressing really well, and we're already seeing it. Well, like, he's already a better player going into week 5 than he was at week 1. So, I love to see it. Love to see it.